My name is Anibal Chico, owner of Chico Performance Racing here in the city of Arcadia, California. Instagram, still bugging, and this is my shop. We build custom VW air-cooled engines, anything from stock to 2500 cc turbocharged, all motor, blow through, fuel injected. We do it all. My brothers actually were Volkswagen guys, and they worked at a service station in Sierra Madre, California. And the owner of that place didn't like doing Volkswagen, so my brothers took on all those Volkswagen jobs. So me as a kid, 12 years old, 13 years old, I'd help my brothers out, bleeding the brakes, handing them a tool, just whatever they needed. I was just a kid that was there to help them, and I just got into Volkswagens. All my brothers had them. It was my thing. There's a bunch of combos I like. 2275, 2332. I've been doing a lot of bus engines. I like the 1956cc, the 2020cc, but I mean, pretty much all of them. I try to do them all different. I try not to do what everyone else is doing, so I like to come up with all these different combos, especially for torque, because I'm a big torque guy. Although we do have those engines that make power, I base my business more around the street use and people that are actually going to use their cars and drive them. Definitely, I've turned a bunch of customers down for just wild things, like things I know I don't want to have 6 months to a year projects here at the shop. I mainly like to just, 2-3 months, they order it, they get it, they're happy. So, but I turn them down all the time, man. I think what it is now is just, it's a really expensive hobby. A lot of the people that are doing it, as far as my customers, I should say, they're more like family-oriented, business-oriented. They had Volkswagens when they were kids. When they were teenagers, it was their first car, but they didn't have money to fix them. So now that they're successful and they're making money, they got careers, they get back into the hobby, and it drives the price up because it's a custom and unique industry. So that's what I think it definitely have made the prices go up on the engines and even the parts. My bad. The parts, and then also like a bunch of auctions that they sell these cars for a really, really high dollar. That really brought the price up in the last 10, 15 years, I would say. The biggest change is just innovation, better parts, higher quality parts, but just a lot of different companies or individuals like myself are making really badass parts, CNC, aluminum, just coming up with different ideas that people didn't come up with, 20, 30 years ago is what's really making a big change in this industry. The big difference is the displacement doesn't make the horsepower. It's really the way the engine's built. I mean, you can go cam, you can go heads, you can go carburation, compression. So yeah, I can build a 1600 to make 120 horsepower, but it's going to be pushing that little 1600 to the limit. It's not really going to be like a driver. It's going to be a really hot street car. So by building it bigger, you can kind of downsize the rest of the parts, camshaft, heads, carburetors. When you're trying to build it for a big horsepower, you got to kind of think out the box. You got to do different compression ratios. You got to figure out what carburetors you're going to use, what cam you're going to use. So the big difference really between the displacement is really the components that are used to get that much more power output from the engine. Personally, I like the naturally aspirated carbureted engine for 200 horsepower because it's instant power. It's literally, you get on it and it's gonna be up there that quick. With a turbo, 200 horsepower turbo, it's 200 horsepower, but it's really gonna make the power up top with boost. And by doing that, you're pushing the envelope. You can have issues, you can blow a cylinder out, you can blow a head out. It's just more dangerous when you do it that way. But I mean, it's an easy way to get big power by going turbo for sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing and the biggest deception with building engines is the customer is just not informed correctly. So what I try to do is I try to find out what vehicle they're going to put it in. what kind of transmission they got, what kind of brake system they got. I try to like more tailor it towards their driving needs than to just be like, hey, well, this guy got money, so I want to sell him a 200 horsepower motor that he's never going to use that power. So I try to kind of get familiar with the customer, their type of driving, their type of vehicle, and then I'll come up with something that's going to work good for them and something they're actually going to get to enjoy the whole time they drive the vehicle. Here officially in Arcadia, I've been here about 16 years now. Actually in February, it turned 16 years. But I was actually doing it out of my brother's garage in Hacienda Heights for probably about 4 years to 5 years prior to that. So officially 16 years I've been here in Arcadia under a business license, but I had been doing it for probably over 20 years now, yeah, altogether. The first VW air-cooled engine I built was for my brother Hector for his bus. I think it was like a 69 bay window. And I built him like a little 1776, and believe it or not, it ran for about 6 months and then it seized up on his ass. Yeah, just, you know, we were budgeting it, you know, and we used bunk parts, man, and, you know, back then it's not like today, and yeah, the motor didn't last very long. Well, something that's a daily driver, I would say anything between like 90 to 110 horsepower in a bug. That's for a daily driver, something you want low maintenance. You know, you pretty much just want to do oil changes, put gas in it, and go. That's what a daily driver to me is, something that you're just going to use on a daily basis to go to work, commute, store, around town. And I think about 90 to 110 is a perfect amount of horsepower. Out of a 1776, 1835, 1914, that's pretty much it for a bug. For a bus, just depending on what you're gonna do with the bus, but if it's just a daily bus that you drive all the time, I would say a little bit of extra horsepower always helps because they're a lot heavier and then they have a lot of wind resistance. So I would say in a bus, anywhere from 100 to 130 horsepower is a sweet spot for sure in a bus for a daily. The fastest that I've ever done was my Pro Gas car. It made like 260 on the dyno, was naturally aspirated. And the best time I ever got was in Sacramento, was an 1104. I can't remember the mile an hour, but it was an 1104 for sure, but I was on a good 1090 run and I broke fourth gear, the top end of the track, so.
Okay, so you race engines too? You build race engines and all that?
I mean, I built race engines and I have done a few of them. It's not my big thing. Like I said, my thing is more street engines, but definitely, man, I mean, I can build them like the best, man, for sure. The fastest I've ever put a long block together is probably like under 2 hours. Like having all the parts there, everything cleaned already, ready to go. Assembly time, 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. But that's just like me trying to do something quick to prove it to myself. But normally, once I have all the parts, customer engine, it probably takes about a full day to do a long block and then another full day to do it complete and then dyno time, yeah. The main reason why I got the dyno when I got it was more or less as a tool, just to come up with different engine combos. But I would say the most important for my business now is just making sure the engine gets broken in right, the cam and the lifters, make all the adjustments, valve adjustment, the timing adjustments, and then tuning to the carburetors, because that's really important, because anyone can build an engine and it can rev on the engine stand with no load. But the second you put it in the car and you let off the clutch, it starts to spit, sputter, and do weird things just because the tuning's off. So my main thing was always like oil leaks, make sure it lives, make sure it's tuned right. So when the customer gets it and puts it in, he don't really have to touch it. It just bolts in and go. Yeah, that's my main reason for the dyno. For the most part, most of my builds right now, it's about 8 to 10 weeks, so about 2 months to 2.5 months. It can vary depending on the build, but you know, most of my combos, it's about 2.5 to 3 months. That's the longest. If it's a special build, like a turbo injected motor, sometimes it's gonna take 4 to 6 months. And then a lot of customers, you know, their projects, so I'll sit on a motor here for 8-9 months because they just want me to take my time and the vehicle's not ready for the engine. So I'll take my time with it, and I'll work on it here little by little. Since we got 7 engine stands here, and pretty much they're always all full, so I can work on 7 different engines at once. Definitely. I think, not only do I build my own engines for my customers and stuff, we also do a lot of repair jobs, and we've seen them all from this guy, that guy, whatever, companies, local guys, guys overseas, guys in the States. And I think most of the time what I actually see that was a failure was probably break-in. Cam and lifter break-in wasn't done right, so you get a bad lobe, you get a bad lifter, all that stuff goes through the engine, wipes out the main bearings, the rod bearings, the crankshaft. But the biggest thing is probably setting the in-play and the compression ratio for it to work with the octane that you're actually going to run in the vehicle. I've seen a lot of engines run hot. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. If it's done wrong or set up wrong, you can have issues. I don't see too much overheating anymore. I think that's a thing of the past, unless you really, really like advance the timing or do something really, really wrong to the engine. But mostly it's probably just tolerances, man. Just a lot of people just don't check their cranks, they don't check their in-plays, they don't check their compression ratio, and they have issues. And then they come to us and we have to fix them. I mean, it really does depend on the build, but definitely run premium 91 octane, whether it's a 1600, 2500 cc. If it's built for pump gas, run the best stuff that you can get at the pump. Now, if you have a certain engine built for some lower octane, then we can definitely accommodate that. We just drop the compression a little bit, maybe do some chamber work in the cylinder head. But most of the time, I would say if it's a pump gas motor, run 91 octane or whatever is premium at your pump. I think the biggest difference between like being a customer that's undecided on what size displacement is really just trying to figure out what he's actually going to use the vehicle for. Like I like all the engine combos, but I would say if a customer is undecided between a 1700, 1835 or 1914, I would say just because now like we have the technology of like the thick wall cylinders, 1835 is definitely the way to go. You get the thicker wall on the cylinder, and that's very beneficial. It'll run a little bit cooler, it'll be a lot stronger, the cylinder will be a lot stronger. But yeah, if you're undecided between 3 different engine combos, the best thing is to actually just talk to your engine builder and tell them exactly what you're going to use the vehicle for, and more than less, the engine builder should know exactly what you'll need. Most of the builds that I do, I like to run 10W40 and maybe even 20W50. It just really depends where it's going, if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's warm weather. But as far as like most of my California people, I tell them run 10W40. And if you can get a zinc additive, definitely put that in there.
Hi, my name is Mark Lujan. These are my 268s. The 68 panel, original owner. I've been driving this bus since I was 13 years old. The single cab I picked up in 2008 in Boise, Idaho. Both these vehicles have Chico Performance Racing engines. Currently have a 1776 in the single cab and a 1915 in the panel. On both of these projects, I was able to talk to Chico, ask him questions about the build, what my expectations were of the performance of the engine, how I drive, where I go. I pull a He-Lite trailer with both of these vehicles. And I think, being able to discuss the engine build with Chico, listen to what he had to say about the build and how he's going to get that performance for me and tailor it to my liking. And I think that's important. As we all know, engines aren't cheap. So I think he optimizes every opportunity to make it to the benefit of the client and also for the build, because he's putting his thumbprint on your build. His knowledge and engine expertise is pinnacle, and I'm glad we have him in Southern California, and he's truly my engine builder of choice. So I truly highly recommend utilizing or even talking to Chico about your next project build and see what he got to say. Never hurts. Thank you.